Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the liberal loudmouth. So, I'm doing this video to just give everybody some outlook into how medical examination in Oklahoma is conducted. The medical examiner lost its accreditation back in 2009 because the state of their office was just horrendous. Everything was rusted. They had backlogs of, hundreds and hundreds of cases that they couldn't get through because they didn't have staff. The equipment they had was aging. The building they had was too small. A variety of reasons. I'm going to show this video to you, and then I'm going to look at the ME's report, and we'll see if what was stated matches up at all with what actually happened. Let's look at that video.
Right now at 5, we're getting the first look at intense body cam footage just released today. It shows deputies with the Wagner County Sheriff's Office arresting a man last month.
Video shows a struggle between deputies and Jeffrey Kruger. Kruger later died following his arrest. Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Bradshaw.
And I'm Neely Jones. Family Ethan Hutchins is live in Wagner with more on that body cam footage. And Ethan, both deputies, they're back on the streets tonight, right?
That's right. Both of those deputies cleared to return to work tonight after the DA says that body cam video clearly shows they didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, so we saw that video where this person was being restrained, sat on, tased multiple times, and, they didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about? Look at the video. They didn't do anything wrong. Just zap, 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 zap. Squish, squish, squish. All is well, right? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at that medical examiner's report, and we'll see what they said was the cause of death. Let's look at that now. All right, let's scroll through here. So let's just read a couple of these. Cardiac dysrhythmias. See circumstances of death in case summary. Reported history of delusions, paranoia, and periods of insomnia without a medically diagnosed psychological condition. History of physical exertion and restraint with law enforcement officers and responding emergency personnel. Multiple blunt force injuries. Head and neck. Minor abrasions and contusions. Torso. Minor abrasions and contusions. Central chest abraded contusion and chest wall fractures are consistent with having occurred, at least in part, during cardiopulmonary resuscitation efforts. Cause of death. Cardiac dysrhythmias, probable acute psychosis in the setting of physical exertion and restraint. Manner of death? Undetermined. We got no idea. Okay, so people weren't buying that, so another investigation was taking place, and let's read what this other examiner had to say, shall we? My name is Satish Chundru. D.O. I'm a practicing private forensic pathologist. I currently work in my own office performing autopsies for counties in Texas. I also travel the country helping perform autopsies at various offices, etc., etc. I've performed over 7,000 autopsies and have assisted or reviewed thousands more. I'm board certified in anatomic and forensic pathology. I received board certification in forensic pathology in 2007, graduated medical school, etc., etc. I've been requested by attorney Mark Lyons to issue an expert opinion regarding the death of Jeffrey Kruger, a 37-year-old male who passed away in police custody. The decedent is a 37-year-old male who was apparently driving erratically and was pulled over by law enforcement on July 1st, 2019. During the stop, decedent purportedly grabbed at a law enforcement officer. He was then restrained by multiple law enforcement officers and emergency medical services personnel. During the process of restraint, it was observed that he was not responding, and he was seen to go into bradypnea before becoming completely unresponsive. Unspecified cardiac dysrhythmias were observed before he became asystolic in the ambulance. He was transported to a hospital where resuscitation was attempted without success, and he was pronounced dead in the emergency room shortly after arrival. During the altercation with law enforcement, a stun gun was used to shock Mr. Kruger multiple times, and at the same time, multiple personnel restrained the decedent in a prone position for minutes until he was found unresponsive. The decedent's only medical history was paranoia and delusions. An autopsy was performed at the Tulsa Medical Examiner's office, and the following findings were diagnosed. Multiple blunt force injuries, head and neck, minor abrasions, etc., etc. We already went over these. The cause of death was determined to be cardiac dysrhythmias due to probable acute psychosis in the setting of physical exertion and restraint, and the manner of death was determined to be undetermined. He goes on to say, after reviewing all the material, I concur with the finding that the death was caused by restraint and nothing else, and strongly disagree with the manner of death. The cause of death would be more appropriate to include bradypnea rather than the cardiac dysrhythmias, as the decedent clearly was restrained to a point where he stopped breathing due to the restraint procedures used. Due to the lack of oxygen from the restraint procedure, any person's heart will go into dysrhythmia. All deaths have a dysrhythmia terminally, so diagnosing cardiac dysrhythmia as a mechanism of death is not relevant and does not indicate the actual mechanism of death, which is asphyxial death from restraint in this case. It is very clear that the decedent was restrained in the prone position for a prolonged period that directly caused his death. Forensic pathologists have been seeing these types of deaths for decades, law enforcement using inappropriate procedures for restraining citizens. These restraint procedures used against Mr. Kruger will predictably and foreseeably cause death or serious injuries. In fact, I've educated law enforcement in the past on how these restraint procedures can cause harm or death to an individual. It is clear from the autopsy findings and the videos the decedent had very extensive injuries from being pulled out of the car and restrained, handcuffed, hogtied. In addition, the decedent was placed in a prone position on the road, and the weight of several officers were placed on the decedent's backside, resulting in not only trauma, most of the rib fractures. Remember how the other ME said that it was because of the compressions trying to resuscitate him, but also preventing the decedent from breathing. The petechia observed in the eyes in supportive of a positional traumatic asphyxia, compression of the torso enough to not allow blood to flow to the heart from the brain, leading to petechia. The face was congested, indicative of the severe compression of the decedent's torso. The chest compressions were done by trained professionals, so the expectation is not to see the extensive rib fractures that were observed at autopsy. In addition, the trained professionals were not able to do proper resuscitation chest compressions due to the decedent being hand and ankle cuffed with a chain connecting them. This would indicate that most, if not all, rib fractures were from law enforcement restraint. Typically, if ribs are fractured during chest compressions, it is the middle ribs, but in this case, Mr. Kruger had rib fractures extending from 2nd to 9th and 10th ribs bilaterally, which is inconsistent with chest compressions and is proof of trauma prior to resuscitation. Rib fractures that are this extensive in a young, healthy male are almost always from trauma prior to resuscitation chest compressions. Now, I could keep going, but I'll just stop it right there. I think you get the point. Now, the fact in Nex's case is that the police did not release a preliminary report. They didn't. They claimed what a preliminary report that they didn't release said. But then you also, and if we believe what they say, we also have to keep in the back of our minds that we see stuff like this all the time, where the police get involved with the ME's office and they just go hand in glove together and do whatever they're told. Now, is that the case here? I don't know. We haven't seen the preliminary report. We haven't seen the report. We're waiting on the toxicology report. So, I mean, it may take weeks before we know. But I'm just trying to tell everybody that we've seen things like this in the past in that area of Oklahoma where they protect each other. That is absolutely true and certainly possible. Is it possible that Nex did not die from injuries sustained during the fight? Sure, that's possible. Is it unlikely? I would say that it is, aside from any issue of self-harm. I'll just say that. Like I said in the last video, I just don't want to think about that. But it's possible. Our police departments and agencies and schools have a history of shoving things under the rug or getting MEs to say things like, well, yeah, sure, the cops were just sitting on them and then tased them while they did it and had them restrained, but no, and that wasn't the cause of death. And in Nex's case, oh yeah, I mean, sure, they got their head smashed into the floor, but that didn't cause any problems. If you notice, the police department almost verbatim said what the school said. The school verbatim said what the police said, and the media just verbatim said what they said, and they all came out with this almost simultaneously. I mean, coincidences. Sure, it's possible, but not likely. I guess now we just have to wait and see what happens. Until then, please, donate to the GoFundMe. That family, I hope, gets a private autopsy. I hope that family does their due diligence, which they already have, and I've posted on Twitter, and I'll go ahead and pull that up now and read the statement that the family has made. They say, on February 7th, 2024, the Benedict family sent their child, Nex Benedict, to Owasso High School, trusting, like any parent or family member should be able to, that it was a safe environment for their loved one. Millions of parents across America make the same decision each and every morning. While at Owasso High School, Nex was attacked and assaulted in a bathroom by a group of other students. A day later, the Benedict's beautiful child lost their life. Many of the questions posed by friends, family, media, and other concerned citizens are also top of mind for those left to honor Nex's memory. While various investigations are still pending, the facts currently known by the family, some of which have been released to the public, are troubling at best. We urge those tasked with investigating and prosecuting all potentially liable parties to do so fully, fairly, and expediently. Notwithstanding, the family is independently interviewing witnesses and collecting all available evidence. The Benedict family calls on all school, local, state, and national officials to join forces to determine why this happened, to hold those responsible to account, and to ensure it never happens again. The family graciously accepts and appreciates the outpouring of support, thoughts, and prayers from across the nation for the loss of their child. In the coming weeks and months, they request that their privacy be respected and that they be allowed to grieve and deal with their new reality, a life without Nex. The Benedicts know all too well the devastating effects of bullying and school violence and pray for meaningful change wherein bullying is taken seriously and no family has to deal with another preventable tragedy. Lastly, the family asks that any threats or acts of violence against students, employees, and personnel or any other persons associated with the Owasso Public Schools cease immediately. So they are doing their own investigation, and I'm glad that that is the case. Last I looked, they were at $98,000 that they've raised. Now, if you aren't aware, lawyers are very, very expensive. Private investigations are extremely expensive. So I'm going to leave a link to their GoFundMe, and if you want to help that family out, ensure that justice is found for Nex, then please go donate some money, whatever you can. To help that family out and make sure that they have the resources they need in order to make sure that we hold everybody responsible and that we don't just rely on people who have a relationship with one another to do the investigating, because, they often don't tattle on themselves whenever they've done something wrong. And if they haven't done anything wrong, then I guess that's great. But there is still a lesson here, as was pointed out by that attorney for the family, which is that bullying should never happen. And people, if you're calling the school, threatening them, making comments of threatening students or teachers or whatever, shame on you. Please stop. That is ridiculous. That doesn't help anything. That only hurts anything, and it just detracts from what needs to be done, and nothing is instantaneous. Okay, everything takes time, so we just have to give it time, and in the meantime, we can keep on, but, we're not going to be threatening people, and we're not going to be trying to create harm or incite violence on people. That is absurd. Please stop it. Anyway, that's it for now, guys. This is the Liberal Loudmouth. I'll keep you updated if I hear any more. Peace.